The Florida Gators had a huge recruiting weekend for the second weekend in a row. We are chatting with On3's Keith Niebuhr about it, and so let's get to it. All right, let's talk specifically about this past weekend and some of the guys who visited. First up, out of Hiram, Georgia, four-star tight end Walter Matthews. I've had him on my top 10 most wanted list for a while. Tell us about where you think the Gators stand with him.
I think that's a true battle with Southern Cal. He's been to Southern Cal like 3 times, so that's a concern. If a guy's going, well, you say own dime, but in the NIL world, who knows? But if a guy's going his own way out to California, a couple times for unofficials and then for an official visit last weekend, that's a concern, right? So Florida really had to kind of stem the tide. Southern Cal had a lot of momentum after his visit out there the previous weekend. In fact, there was some chatter that he was really leaning that way. So the first thing Florida had to do was see what kind of gauge him after coming off that sugar high of the visit, we call it, where you're that Sunday night, Monday. You guys know this, where you're just all into that visit. So would he come down off that a little bit? And I think Florida felt like he did. And then they really feel like he had an outstanding visit, and he said he had an outstanding visit. So if you're Florida, what gives you hope? Proximity to home is one thing. And then 2, he is really close with Russ Callaway, the tight ends coach in Gainesville. He said, hey, look, of all the coaches recruiting me, that's probably the guy I'm closest with. And then 3, again, all indications are he had an outstanding visit. But he likes USC. And now here's another thing. He's supposed to compete in this Elite 11 passing camp out in Los Angeles this coming week because they have to have guys to throw to, right? So the quarterbacks will throw to guys like him. Well, while he's out there, I believe that he may piggyback that into a Southern Cal visit again. Right. So, again, these are major concerns here. So, right now it may be 50. Here you go, you're Florida. You just kind of stop the momentum of one Southern Cal visit, and he may be out there again soon. So that's a real concern. Now, the good thing, Allie, is Florida's got a pretty loaded tight end board. They lead for Eric Carter out of Illinois. They're very much in contention with Amir Jackson out of Georgia, who's going to visit this coming weekend. They're still in it with the Tennessee commit, Jonathan Eccles. So, they're in it with enough guys to give you confidence to think, okay, my program can get a couple of these guys. And they definitely want to sign 2 from the way we understand it. But look, they feel really good about how it went with Walter Matthews this weekend. I'm just looking at it, objectively and say, okay, but 3 trips to SC, is this going to be a 4th? What does that mean? So we'll find out. I believe he's going to have a decision sometime in the next, month or so. So we won't. We won't have to wait long. And the other thing is, I guess, and you don't want to say, hey, if my program misses on this guy and that guy, but tight end is a developmental position. So we know historically there's going to be guys emerging in the fall that we don't even know their names right now. Right. That's just one of those positions, right? Yep. But if you're Florida, you really want to land Walter Matthews and either Eric Carter or Amir Jackson. So we'll see. Definitely in it with all 3.
All right, next up, a safety out of Mainland, which obviously is located in Daytona Beach, so very close to Gainesville, Zay Mincey. Florida seemed like they were going to get Jordan Pride when he decommitted from FSU, but Zay is someone we've been keeping our eye on a lot. Thoughts on his recruitment?
Yeah, now that's one I haven't paid as much attention to as a person I work with, but all indications are Florida's felt pretty good about him for a while. He's one of the top guys on the defensive backboard overall on defense as well. It's a school that historically Florida's done pretty well at, Daytona Beach, Mainland, and Corey Raymond's involved in this recruitment, who's one of Florida's top recruiters and probably has the best resume, let's be honest, of anybody on the Florida staff, right? So I think there's a lot of reasons for Florida fans to be confident and optimistic. The question is, how long is this going to drag out? That's what we don't know. But right now, and I read his interview today. I didn't write that story. I just don't remember all the particulars in it from Sunday. But again, from all indications, it was a good visit, another good visit. And he's the kind of guy he'll probably be back for some unofficials too. Sure. So I think you have to like where Florida sits right now. But, everything's always fluid.
Sure. Well, and he's just in the Gators' backyard. So you've got to think if you can get him there a few more times unofficially, that can help.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It feels like Florida's been in the driver's seat for a while. So. But then sometimes when a guy's like that, they don't commit, and you wait, and you're like, okay, what are they waiting for? And sometimes they're just waiting for no reason, and sometimes there is a reason. So that's what we don't know yet. But again, I think most people that I've talked to think Florida's sort of in the driver's seat there. So, really good player too. High 4-star, mid 4-star, I think.
Would be very nice to have him on the roster for sure. Chance Robinson, wide receiver out of St. Thomas Aquinas. So he's currently committed to Miami. Do you think the Gators could pull off a flip here?
I think they could. I think everybody wants me to say, yeah, they definitely will.
Right.
Look, I mean, he's committed to Miami for a reason, although that kind of came out of the blue. Not that he liked Miami. I think everybody knew that he liked Miami, but the timing of his commitment earlier this year caught a lot of people off guard. So here's what we learned this weekend. We talked to people at different schools, sources with Florida, sources with Penn State, and sources with another school that has a lot of deep South Florida ties. And all those people thought Florida absolutely has a shot, okay? And we're told that Penn State sees Florida maybe as their biggest threat. Like they think Florida's a bigger threat to get him than even Miami, the school he's committed to. And then, people in South Florida seem to think Florida's really heavy in this one. So, Kerry Colbert, the former receivers coach, was recruiting him, and then he left for the NFL, I think. And then you brought in Billy Gonzalez, who had to kind of restart that relationship with him. But, Billy Napier's heavily involved. Billy's been involved with a lot of the big guys. You see that all the time. That's not uncommon. But he's seemingly connected with this young man. We know he's still got some visits left. And I want to say Miami maybe June 23rd. And then he's going to kind of sit back, look it all over with his parents, and maybe comes to some sort of resolution. But again, I think there's some reason to be optimistic if you're Florida there. They feel like they presented a great case this weekend. They feel like they've given him the best visit so far from the people we talked to. And then also, they feel like having DJ Lagway committed is going to help. If you're a Florida fan, you're like, okay, Keith, Allie, everybody keeps saying that it's going to pay off having Lagway, and other recruits are going to come, and it hadn't happened really. Receivers, tight ends, offensive linemen, just hasn't happened yet. But apparently he's having an impact in this recruitment. I don't know if that's because he's built a relationship with them so much as it is just the fact that he's going to Florida. Sure. And Chance, even in his quote Sunday, Chance said, I'm going to go somewhere where I feel comfortable and where there's somebody that can get me the ball.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So.
Well, DJ Lagway would be a very good person to be getting him the ball.
Yeah, can I say maybe one more point? I mean, I just spent a lot of time with DJ in Nashville at On3's big NIL Elite Series event. And, real humble kid, real kind of quiet, keeps to himself. That's Chance Robinson. Now, I'm not saying I don't recruit for the schools. I'm not dropping bags off. I don't make pitches to the kids. They got to make their own decisions.
Sure.
But when you start looking at his personality and DJ Lagway's personality, Chance Robinson, that is, you see some similarities there. You see and Jeremiah Smith for that reason as well. The Ohio State kid. I don't know if he's going to stick with Ohio State or not, but you could see why those kids would sort of gravitate together on a personal level. Doesn't mean they're going to be teammates, but there are some reasons to think they would connect. And obviously Jeremiah Smith and DJ Lagway have connected on a personal level. And I think Chance Robinson's sort of that humble kind of guy in that mold as well. So we'll see.
They seem to be, that also seems to be kind of the mold that Napier prefers too. So, I mean, there's something to be said about that as well. I know Miles Graham was on campus, and obviously he's committed to UF already. But do you think coming out of his visit that he's basically shut it down and he's not going to look anywhere else?
Well, he says he is. But, I mean, what did Chauncey Bowens tell me and Blake Alderman of our competitor 24/7 on Wednesday? Hey, I'm 100%. I think Mark Wheeler was there too. I'm 100%. And I said, well, what about Georgia? Oh, they're a threat. You know what I mean? Like, that was the next sentence. Yeah. But Miles Graham, look, so what we know is, obviously his dad's the great running back, Ernest Graham, right? And Miles is from Atlanta, and he played at College Park Woodward Academy, where, by the way, his coach was former Florida Gator offensive lineman John Hunt, who also played in the NFL. Well, where did John Hunt coach years ago before he got to Atlanta? He was head coach at Buolds High School in Gainesville. Also, here's something that's interesting. Ernest and Miles are moving to Gainesville.
Okay. All right, so they're in.
So he's locked in. He's ready to go. He spent the whole weekend recruiting from what we're told. And, DJ Lagway gets a lot of credit for being a recruiter. But Miles Graham, again, another kind of guy that's, I don't know what the word is, a lot cooler than me, let's put it that way. I'm twitching shaking like a leaf here. He's a cool customer, right? And but not too cool for school either. I mean, he's just I don't want to say good dude. You never really know, right? I mean, there's been a lot of guys out that we thought were good dudes that didn't end up being good dudes, but he seems like he is, okay?
Yeah.
And so I think people, as a leader, as a top 100 type recruit, other recruits sort of gravitate. They look at those rankings. They know they can tell who the alpha dog is. And so he was actively recruiting, and he was working on Chance Robinson. He's working on some defensive linemen. He's working on some offensive linemen. Mike Williams, the former South Carolina commit, who we think is trending big time to Florida, and a decision could be coming down the road, in the fairly near future. So he was recruiting really hard over this weekend. He's locked in. His dad's pumped. How cool, I'm going on and on here, Allie, but how cool do you think it was for his dad to be able to go on an official visit to the school he once played at.
So cool.
I talked to Ernest the other day. A lot of people forget he was teammates with Teddy Dupay in high school.
Yeah.
And they had a famous game where they went into the great Miami High when Miami High was, I don't even know if they're any good anymore. I've been out of the state for a while. And I want to say Dupay dropped 50 on one of those great Miami High teams. But Ernest Graham, great, like a true Gator, 100% Gator. And as a matter of fact, I met him or talked to him on Wednesday. It was me, him, and Willie Jackson, my old middle school teammate, talking together.
My gosh.
And Travis McGriff with the Florida 7-on-7 camp. Travis McGriff coached the team. Doug Johnson was out there watching his son. Eric Kresser was coaching a team.
Oh my goodness, what a reunion!
Ernest Graham was coaching a team. So it was just Mark Campbell was out there. It was just a Gator reunion, and then the legend of the alligator, me with all the legends of the actual playing field. But no, I think Ernest is just super excited that his kids got this unbelievable opportunity to follow in his footsteps. He's just got to be through the roof right now.
I mean, I can not really relate, but sort of relate. I know my dad was super excited when my brother got to go there, and I'm sure that's how my grandfather felt. All right, so you told us a little bit already, but is there anybody you think might be close to pulling the trigger that visited this past weekend?
Well, Mike Williams. I mean, he's a 3-star offensive tackle, but he's a big kid. If you looked at the photos that we posted and everybody else posted, well, we just stole his photos, quite frankly. The photos he put on Instagram, he's a big-looking dude. I'm looking at his profile right now. It says 6'5", 310. He looks bigger than that, all right? He looks like he's got the narrow hips, too. He looks like he's a tackle all the way. We'll see. He'll end up playing a guard. I haven't seen his ankles, though. And Hugh Freeze says you got to look at the ankles, right? If they're really thick, a guy's going to be inside, and if they're a little skinnier, he'll be outside. But I think that's the guy to watch. He's from Baltimore, was committed to South Carolina.
Yeah.
Probably more of a developmental guy, but you got to have those on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. You can't – first of all, how many guys are ready to play in year one, right?
Not a lot.
So
right.
The reality of it is where Florida's offensive line situation is right now, even if they sign 4, 5, 6 guys, they'll probably have to go in the portal next year to have guys ready to play in year one. That's just – there's a lot of schools like that right now.
Sure.
FSU, same way. That's the guy I would watch. Micah Barrow, the defensive lineman from Creekside High School in Fairburn, Georgia, just on the west side of Atlanta, not far from Cam Newton's high school, in fact. I think Westlake is one of the rivals. A big defensive tackle. I'm looking at his profile right now. He's looking at 6'5", 350. I want to say he weighed in at like 375 or 380, though. He's massive. You got to have those big guys. It's the way Florida plays defense. Just hold up a couple blockers and, whatever. But I think that's a guy to watch. I'm just going through the list here. Marcus Maskell was an offensive tackle visited this week from South Gwinnett. His brother played at Clemson. I think LSU's trending there. Not as optimistic on him. Eric Carter's an interesting one, the tight end we mentioned earlier from Illinois.
Yeah.
Florida took the lead, but he's still Texas A&M and Iowa are involved. And we know Iowa's tight end U, right? And he's from Illinois. So Florida leads right now, he says, but you got to survive that Iowa official, right? People are like, why would anybody go to Iowa over Florida? Well, if you're tight end.
Stability from Kurt Ferenc.
Yeah. But, Florida's had some success with tight ends, too. Jordan Reed, Cornelius Ingram. A lot of guys from our era, Allie, that played in the NFL. So, Ben Troop, the big kid Aaron, what was his name? A lot of guys that played there. So, those are kind of the guys to watch. I'm just going through this list here. We didn't mention Caleb Odom. And that's a guy that's listed as a tight end, 4-star guy from Carrollton, Georgia, right on the Alabama-Georgia state line. Yeah. Great program. In fact, right now I believe Antonio Cromartie's son plays on that team, the great Noel.
Look at you pulling out the facts.
Yeah, Caleb Odom, 6'4", 220. Again, listed at tight end, but I was told this spring there were schools that had concern about his toughness. Well, now all these schools are recruiting him at receiver. There you go. Makes sense, right? And so who's recruiting a receiver? Ole Miss. Ole Miss has had great success with 6'3", 6'4" receivers. Evan Ingram was a hybrid tight end, first-round pick. A.J. Brown, my good buddy's kid, DK Metcalf. I'm forgetting my buddy's name. So they've had success with those big receivers, but so has Florida as well. Sure. So Florida very much in it. Auburn, Hugh Freeze had success with the taller receivers too. Florida made a big move for him. Alabama, he said, was his leader after visiting there, I guess, a few days ago. Now he says Florida's significantly in the running. That's going to be a tough one. But he is basically one of their, with TJ Moore committing to Clemson, he's one of their big targets at Florida of the taller receivers. So I think they made a move for him. I think they made a move for him too. But people want the commitments Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and obviously if you get them, you're going to be thrilled. But the key is to look back a month from now and say, who did we get from those weekends? I mean, I guess that sounds like a cop-out. You'd rather all the guys just commit, but look, I mean, a lot of these kids want to take their visits too. So that's just the reality with which Florida isn't Clemson right now. It's not Alabama. It's not Georgia. It's not Ohio State. So they're going to have to work a little harder to get these commitments. That's just the way it is. When you start winning, it becomes a little easier. But right now, I think fans are just going to have to be a little patient. I will say this: Miles Graham said he feels like their commitments are coming this month, next few weeks. But Mike Williams is really the first guy I would keep an eye on.
Well, Gator fans are going to be happy to hear that commits are coming. We have more content coming with Keith discussing where he thinks UF is overall, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. If you missed our video on how Urban Meyer is right and Barstool sucks, click here.